It is 7:03 p.m. This is a committee of the whole meeting. This was a meeting that we had to reschedule. We were originally scheduled to have this meeting last week, but because there were some questions about the Open Meetings Act, the status of the Open Meetings Act, we wanted to make sure that we could hold this meeting legally and in a way that would provide the most opportunity for people to participate. And so we postponed it to this week. Of course, on Friday, the governor signed the amendment to the Open Meetings Act that was passed by the legislature last week. So we now have this available to us. So Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Bailey, Cochran, Goodfriend.
Here.
Hoda.
Here.
Klein, Lunkins, and Smith.
Present.
Okay, Trustee Bailey and Trustee Lunkins did communicate that they would not be able to make it tonight. Trustee Lunkins' absence is an excused absence. And we move on to approval of the agenda and order of business. Is there, do any board members have any questions or amendments about the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move. I just want to make sure.
Excuse me, Mr. Hoyt, but it's very difficult hearing you tonight. It's quite muffled.
Okay, I'll try. No? Can folks hear? Were other people having trouble hearing me before, and is this better?
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Yes. Okay. So, any questions about the agenda or changes to the agenda from members of the board?
No.
Okay. And with no objection, the agenda is approved. And we move on to the consent agenda, which tonight includes the approval of minutes as well as personnel recommendations. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of the board would like to have taken off the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I move that the consent agenda be approved, and this will be a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The consent agenda is approved unanimously, and we move on to the presentations, and we start with our return to school recommendation. Dr. Hitchcock.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I am going to make sure I get my presentation up. Which is tough because I like to see everyone's faces while I'm presenting, but unfortunately you can't do that when you have so many participants, 154. So we are very happy to have so many people here this evening. President Hoyta, board trustees, thank you for your patience and willingness to continue to collaborate with us as we work through our COVID-19 plan. So some of this, what you're gonna see this evening is our current plan. And when I say current, I'm talking 7:07 p.m. on October 19th. As we have said multiple times, you know that COVID-19 is an ever-changing, moving target. And we are trying to adjust to that target to the best of our ability to ensure that we are making decisions that are in the best interest of our students, families, and staff. So I am going with that. One of the things that Jay Hafner said, who is one of the members of our teaching and learning department, that I thought was so good and so spot on, is that no matter what plan we come up with, we're going to be able to poke holes in that plan because we are in an imperfect system with a number of different variables that are challenging us in ways that we have never been challenged before as educators. So we're going to do our best to come up to share a plan with you in a moment that we believe is appropriate. But one of the things that I like the most about the plan is it allows us to pivot, to accelerate if by some odd occurrence there's a vaccine sooner rather than later. And we know that, and we can go back to school very, very quickly, or decelerate because there is a rise in cases that is extreme, and it's unsafe to put our students in that type of environment. So we have, what I'm going to share with you this evening is a plan that's very flexible. It's important to note that with this plan and every plan, we remain committed to our guiding principles of health and safety, research-based decisions, commitment to social emotional support, high quality instructional practices, and providing learning tools for success for not only students, but also for staff. Additionally, on June 1st, we came together as a school district community and passed our strategic plan and outlined and identified our core beliefs: that we maintain physical, emotional, and culturally safe learning environments. We build productive relationships with all of our stakeholders. We provide equitable, anti-racist instruction and practices. We prepare thoughtful, successful, and engaged members of a global community. And we are maximizing resources with transparency and accountability. So we have guiding principles and we have our core beliefs. Now, I just talked about this a little bit, but I want you to see what this graphic is showing. COVID-19, it is a moving target. 2 weeks ago, I was moving in one direction in my mind, and now 2 weeks later, we're on a different path. And that is how rapid some of the details and variables locally, nationally, and internationally are changing. So how will we know it's safe to return? There has been some discussion about this that's provided us with more clarity now than what we previously had. So there will be an analysis of data from Oakland County, specifically the city of Oak Park, also city of Detroit and Wayne County. The city of Detroit, unfortunately, is not included in the Wayne County data. So it's important to note that when we're looking at data, we're going to look at Oakland County data. So those are the school districts that surround us. We're going to look at specifically in Oak Park. We also have an obligation to look at Wayne County data. And Wayne County is parsed out from the city of Detroit data, so that's separate data. Currently, we do not have access to Wayne County or city of Detroit data. We are partnering with our epidemiologists in Oakland County, and they have made that request. But we currently do not have that information and data. However, they are committed to providing it to us. And I don't want to say it in a way that's disparaging in any way to either Wayne County or the city of Detroit. They have a lot of different variables, and at the Wayne County level have far fewer epidemiologists than we have access to in Oakland County. Informed decisions based on bi-weekly conference call with the epidemiologist. So we have had the epidemiologist and lead nurse for Oakland County Health Department at our last 2 superintendent cabinet meetings. They also attend weekly the Oakland County superintendent's meetings. and provide updates there. So we are regularly engaged in conversation with them, as well as meeting regularly with the assigned nurses by the Oakland County Health Department to Oak Park. We're monitoring local, state, and international trends. We have weekly meetings for all cabinet members, so that's a little bit different. I have the superintendent's meeting. Carol Diglio has an HR meeting with all the Oakland County HR folks. Cassandra Baptiste has a meeting with all of the curriculum folks. So in addition to our collective meetings, we have individual meetings with all of our job-like peers throughout the county. We have updated survey data from parents, students, and staff. And then finally, board approval will be another way that we make a determination around when it's safe to return. Okay. So what we're proposing is a phased re-entry. And so some people may question, you know, there's so many different perspectives on whether we should be in school, out of school, or how we should go about doing either. We believe that at some point, we're going to need to return to school. And so our return to school will be a phased re-entry to be as conservative as possible in terms of safety precautions. And some people may be asking why. There are districts all around us in Oakland County, 13 out of 28, who are already already returned with some type of in-person learning. And so I think it's important to note that although we are similar to some of those districts, we also have a lot of differences. And one of the key differences that I have found is that the students in Oak Park make up 100 different zip codes. So I put a comparison on this slide. Just to compare, Detroit makes up 57 zip codes, Chicago makes up 60 zip codes, and all 5 boroughs in New York make up 160 zip codes. So we are pulling from, even though we're similar to districts like Pontiac or Southfield, we're pulling from 100 different geographic areas, which makes us particularly unique, even though we may have a similar racial or economic profile as other districts. We are unique in having 100 different zip codes. We also know that in Oak Park, we have experienced a decrease in enrollment. Other districts around us have also experienced a decrease. In those districts, some are like us in terms of our profile, and some are not. We believe that at this point, well, I should say this, we don't believe at this point that at this point, we do not believe that some of the teachers will have to help me out with the annotation process. At this point, we don't believe that some people are going other places. We believe that, and there was a story about this on CNN today, that some children just are not reporting to online school. They just are not responding. Their parents are either overwhelmed by financial issues. Some students are working. Some students are caring for their siblings. And so there are some students that just are not reporting. For whatever reason, the decrease in enrollment will have a financial impact. But what we know will be a greater financial impact, even if we can reclaim all of our students, will be if we don't offer any type of in-person opportunity, parents who are in need of that opportunity may go to other places to have their learning needs met. I talked about this before. The why behind the phased reentry is needing more time to look at additional data. The phased reentry also allows us to quickly pivot. I've talked about that. Either accelerate further or
warmer. That's when we saw a few breaks in the clouds today. And some of those spots are actually warmer than they were on Sunday, but the vast majority of it is.
Menachem, can you help me? Okay, thanks. Either accelerate further or decide that we need to return to fully virtual. It allows for an increase in childhood immunizations in our district. We know that during COVID-19, there were many families that had a fear about going to the doctor and getting immunization. So this will allow opportunities for that to occur. It will provide a real-time opportunity to learn from local, state, and nationwide trends in school districts. It will allow us to start responding to parent community needs for on-site learning to increase student learning outcomes and social emotional well-being. So let's look at our survey data. Here in Oak Park, we just about a week ago administered some surveys. We had a total of 814 respondents from our families, which was the highest rate of return that we've had during COVID-19. 63% of our families indicated that they prefer to continue to be online. And 37% of our families indicated that they prefer an in-person option. Now that's increased probably, it's almost nearly doubled, not quite doubled, but nearly doubled in terms of an in-person preference. For students, we had about 1,274 respondents, and 20% of them preferred to stay online, and 80% preferred an in-person option. And then for our staff, we had 235 respondents, 78% preferred to stay online for Q2, which is our second car marking that starts early November, and 15% indicated that they wanted to return in person. And this 7% at the bottom here, they clicked other and they had a variety of different thoughts. Some of those thoughts were we should stay online. Some of those thoughts were we should return in person if there are safety precautions. But 16% of our staff indicated a reduced class size was a major factor in returning. So we have been charged with satisfying all three groups of people on this slide. And, you know, I say that tongue in cheek, but we've worked really hard to come up with a plan that we believe does that. So we are continuing to stick with our two options for families. Those two options are in-person / on-site. This is Oak Park families opt into gradually returning to in-person or on-site learning instructional model following the proposed timeline. And this is a phased in-person approach, and we're going to maintain all required and strongly recommended health and safety protocols. If quarantine is necessary, students will utilize Google Classroom for asynchronous instruction, and we're exploring Zoomy buddies. Our second option for online learning is full online learning with one of three different options: an OPS staff member, a live feed from the classroom, which, to be very transparent, my own child is using it, and I've spoken not only to him, but to several of his teachers about how difficult that's been. So we're trying to steer away from that. Oh, sorry. Or approved or online self-paced learning platform, which is really a rigorous online self-paced module with consistent grade level standards. We're going to ask that we get assigned staff members to serve as a mentor to help guide the student. And there will be daily virtual contact with teachers and classmates through office hours and enrichment. So what this online platform is, this is not uncommon here in Oak Park. We currently use that system with E2020 and with Plato at Nova. These learning models are in effect while we are in phases 4 or 5 or 6. If we return to phases 1 through 3 or local COVID-19 conditions dictate, all students will participate in online learning. So we remain committed to doing what is safe for kids. So this is how we would like to start. We have our own internal phases. I know that Governor Whitmer also is calling them phases, but for the purpose of this presentation, just let's think of these as internal phases. So our first phase approach is on-site, providing on-site learning hubs. And this would be following Thanksgiving. So initially we were going to say Monday after Thanksgiving, let's go. But in order to make sure we're ready to go, we're going to say Tuesday, December 1st, post-Thanksgiving, we're going to begin by providing on-site learning hubs. Now, this is a model that they're using in both Ferndale as well as Detroit. So this model allows us to provide in-person or on-site opportunities for students with IEPs, 504s, and pre-K through 12 students 4 days a week, as available seats and staffing allows. So it's going to be, our learning hubs, our hope is that they're going to be small to start out, but we feel an obligation to our parents and to our students, particularly of those of our most vulnerable, because either they have a learning disability, their accommodations are needed, or they have some unique learning needs, to provide a place for them to come to get support on site 4 days per week. Those days would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Again, as available seats and staffing allows. The online schedule will continue for students on site for academic and technology support and structure. So Mr. Klein suggested this early on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or something similar to this, where there are opportunities for kids to come to school. There are staff members there to provide assistance, but they would still be taught by their teachers who are teaching them online at home or either in their classroom, if that's what they prefer. But during the times when there's some flexibility in their schedule, we're hoping to provide support staff there. What does this do? This provides a structured environment for them to be in every day. It provides them with an opportunity to have breakfast and lunch each day. It provides them with an opportunity to start developing a structure of getting back to school and a habit of doing that. It provides some technology support. Jim Nye indicated there are quite a few parents who are growing frustrated with some of the technology and trying to figure that out if they are not accustomed to using those tools. So it would provide students with somebody helping them with the technology and providing some limited academic assistance. all required and recommended safety measures would be in effect for our learning hubs. And we believe that this model supports all families. So some families would have the opportunity, just so I'm clear, to opt in to online learning hubs starting Tuesday, December 1st, post-Thanksgiving break. And other families would remain online doing exactly what we're doing right now. In order to make this, our online learning hub model work, we would need at the pre-K through 5 level about 6 to 7 staff members, including administrators. At OPA, about 8 staff members. At the high school, about 13 staff members. At NOVA, about 2 staff members. With the idea in mind that we're going to start out small. We want to start out really small and get things right with about 1 staff member per 10 gen ed students. It could be a smaller group of students for our students, or smaller group of students per staff member ratio for our students with disabilities. Okay, so here are some of the nuts and bolts. We're going to start out small with nuts and bolts for our on-site learning hubs. So the on-site learning hubs, 4 days a week, on-site online learning, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays with security personnel, and at-home learning online on Wednesdays. So the students would be in school, in person, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, 4 days a week, with the exception of Wednesdays, where they would be at home. Wednesdays provides us with some flexibility in terms of additional cleaning protocols, regrouping, ensuring that we have all the proper procedures in place, and that we're taking it slowly, just in chunks by chunks, to make sure that we're keeping everybody healthy and safe. During this time, we would not be providing latchkey because it is going to be so important that students are cohorted and remain in a seating chart. And when students get into a latchkey setting, they are mixed up with other students. And if we have to contact trace, it would be really difficult to do that. So we will not be providing latchkey. The Learning Hub option is only available to students who have a current legally required childhood immunization certification or valid waiver. So students must be up to date on all of their childhood vaccinations. Now, I want to be very clear that I'm not talking about a COVID-19 vaccine. I'm talking about our traditional childhood vaccinations. All students would also be able to receive breakfast and lunch, but we will also continue to provide meals on Wednesdays. Transportation will be available for students who register in advance. So any child who needs transportation that would normally receive it will be eligible for transportation, but they must register. We must know that they are coming. In accordance with Governor Whitmer's return to school roadmap, no visitors or parents or guardians will be allowed to enter the buildings. The buildings will be locked. Parents and guardians must remain, in their vehicles. And so for the little guys, this is going to be particularly important that we emphasize that students must be dropped off and picked up on time from school, because we do not have the supervision to manage students without adult supervision and prevent them from being bunched up together or potentially coming in too close of a contact. So any student who is habitually dropped off early, and I'm going to say a pattern to me is 2+. Any student who has dropped off 2+ times before supervision is available or is not picked up 2+ times when supervision ends, that student will be reassigned to online learning at home and will no longer be eligible for the on-site learning. Additionally, Chromebooks will be provided at school, so the students will not have to take their computers back and forth. They'll have a Chromebook that they can use at school when they're on site, and the one that they're using for home will remain at home. So they don't have to be responsible for carrying that back and forth. The key thing that kids need to remember to carry with them every day is they need to have their masks. We want them to remember to have their masks, and for that to really be one of the only things that they're responsible for taking back and forth. So our tentative learning hub schedule is this. School arrival, drop off 8:05. We're hoping that this provides them with an opportunity for breakfast, to sit down and get logged in for the day. We know that the beginning of the elementary day is, I believe, a silent reading time. So they have some flexibility for students who may come in late or have other issues that delay them from getting to their seat to log in. And that students will be picked up at 3:15. And then I won't read the rest of these, but you can see the school arrival and drop off time period, login time when learning starts, and then the school dismissal and pickup schedule. Okay, so if we are able to find success with our learning hub model, our goal will be to shoot for following winter break. So this is Monday, January 4th, post-winter break. So I'm sure some people are thinking, well, we had that extra day added in for Thanksgiving. Why do we not have that added in for winter break? Well, winter break is a time when many people are still working in the school environment. Our custodial staff is working. Some of our transportation and maintenance folks can work during that time. So it's not exactly the same as that limited portion of Thanksgiving break. So during Monday, January 4th, our goal would be to have our on-site learning hubs continue for the 6th through 12th graders, but for our pre-K through 5 students to return to school. So some folks may be thinking, oh my goodness, are we now saying all of our pre-K through 5 students? Well, if you remember back at and look at our data, we only have about 40% of our families that are indicating that they want to return in person. I am so proud of all of the work that the teachers did, as well as our ad building team. We worked extremely hard to get in contact with parents to confirm their addresses and phone numbers and such for their laptops. We're going to have to use a similar model to get as accurate as information as we possibly can about a commitment, to returning online or to or staying online or returning in person. And what will this do? If we only have 40% of our families who want to return in person, we know that we will be able to social distance, provide all of the health and safety protocols, make sure our kids are cohorted, make sure that our kids eat lunch in the same space, but we're also providing relief and lunch and prep time for our teachers, that we're able to adhere to all of those safety protocols with 40% of our students in class. And even, let's say we called all around, and many of you know that even though we called each family, there was still some numbers that were off with our laptops. So let's say even if we get 50%, we are still able to adhere to the social distancing and all of the other health and safety protocols by having a much smaller number. So pre-K through 5 students will return at all 3 elementary schools. Students would be cohorted by teachers. All staff come to the classroom. All required and recommended safety measures will be in effect. So one of the things that's important to note is that schedule that we are starting with this online, or with the Learning Hub schedule, where the students are coming 4 days a week to in-person. We're going to maintain that schedule. So for our pre-K through 5th grade students, the 40% that come back, they will only be in person Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So that Wednesday will be an opportunity for us to, we're going to clean every day, but some additional cleaning and safety measures in place on the Wednesday. So teachers would either teach from home or have a part of that day be synchronous, to provide some extra opportunities for planning and such. All pre-K through 12 staff, our goal is to have you report to the building during the week of December 16th through the 20th. So that's before the break. And we want pre-K through 5 teachers, the time that they have built in for office hours and such. We may cancel office hours during that week to provide you with the time to set up your classrooms, put up your bulletin boards, take home any personal items that would impact you from the kids having the ability to be really spread out. And our 6 through 12 teachers will be asking you to come in and do the same amount of preparation, but also at this point, we're asking you to get in the fit and feel of returning back to school and teaching in the building. And then principals will start working with staff about safety protocols, where stickers are on the floor, how we're going to keep people separated, where they're going to eat for lunch. All of those things, we'll start working through those with the staff in the building before the kids return. Okay. Health procedures. All required and strongly recommended health and safety procedures will be followed during this plan. These are included but are not limited to a parent-guardian commitment for the COVID-19 school health screening agreement. Safety guidelines and appropriate school behavior are expected. Now, this is going to be key because, we know kids are kids and they haven't had a lot of structure, but we're going to only be able to tolerate a limited amount of behavioral issues. Any that become a pattern or too extreme, those students will be reassigned to online learning. All students must wear masks for the full day, all students and staff, including on school transportation. If a student does not have a mask, we will provide masks. However, students wearing their own masks to school, we will be asking them to please wash their cloth masks daily. But in order to ensure the safety of all of our staff, if a child does not have a clean mask or you've noticed a pattern, we will have masks available for students. Strict cleaning and disinfecting processes will be followed, including the MIOSHA requirements will be in effect. All parents and guardians are required to have an emergency contact available to pick their children up from school if they exhibit symptoms. Students exhibiting symptoms will not be permitted on the school bus. So I know many of us are thinking, well, are they going to be able to really do that? So one of the things that you'll hear later is Carol, as well as the HR department and the 3 nurses, have been identifying spaces and protocols in each building. We will have access to our nurses as well as our school-based health center to help us supervise that queue room or quarantine room until a child is picked up. Again, if it becomes an issue with one child or whatever not being picked up, we will develop a different learning plan for that student. At this time, there will be no cubby or locker use, so students will have to keep all of their belongings at their seats with them. When I was a high school administrator, a lot of action happened at the lockers, and there was a lot of crowding and congregating, which we're trying to do away with that. And the same is possible with the cubbies. So we would be asking students to put their jackets on the back of their chairs and their backpacks under their seats. Okay, so, oops. During our conversation with our epidemiologist, we learned a couple of different things. And I thought this was interesting information. That at this point, in none of the schools in Oakland County have they experienced any student-to-student transmission, student-to-teacher transmission, or teacher-to-student transmission. All of the cases that are being collected or listed in the database are cases that are happening at home, and then the kids are bringing them to school. But with the proper social distancing and face coverings and cohorting, they have not seen transmission in a school environment at this time. So the three strategies to try to reduce risk, not eliminate it, are mask, social distancing, and cohorting / seating charts. That is key. Considerations. So based on our survey participant response rate, current data indicates 37% of families want to return on site, and 80% of our 6th through 12th grade students want to return on site. Our current model, and we want to remain committed to a model that allows us to pivot, either move quickly and go forward if by some thought there's a miracle and there's a vaccine, or if things get really, really bad and whether the governor makes the decision or not, we make the decision to return to online learning. We want a plan that will allow us to do that. We believe the phased reentry will. Our 2 learning models are driven by the decisions that our families request. So, this has been listening to what's happening nationally and conversations around the economy versus health and safety are difficult conversations. And these were conversations that I believe were choices earlier on. Where we are right now is if we make decisions to not even attempt to try to return, it is going to have a financial impact on the district that I don't know that we can sustain. So our goal is to at least attempt to have a phased reentry and do it as safe as possible. And if we find that that's not possible, then we have to reverse. Okay, so now I have given you sort of the framework of what we are thinking as a cabinet. We remain committed to our collaboration. We are continuing our union pulse checks, which involves all 3 union leaders, our teachers union leader, our para union leader, and our admin union leader, and cabinet meeting once a week to discuss any issues, to remain, to stay committed to the spirit of collaboration. Additionally, now that we have a framework and somewhat of a timeline, the teaching and learning, operations, and mental health ad hoc committees will reconvene to offer recommendations within this framework. So you'll still have a voice in how we go about doing this. If there's a conversation like, oh, I think December 16th through the 20th is not enough time to set up our classrooms, we think we need this amount of time, that is something that can be discussed and a plan can be developed with that collaboration. Additionally, we have now a school health committee that encompasses COVID-19 health, childhood immunizations, and just school health in general. So just to recap our phase reentry timeline, Tuesday, December 1st, pre-K through 12, the learning hubs on site as space and staffing allows. Monday, January 4th, pre-K through 5, return on site, maintain the learning hubs for 6 through 12 students. And Tuesday, January 19th, would be our next natural re-entry for our secondary students, provided these first 2 circles go well. Then Tuesday, January 19th, we'll be looking at the possibility of the phased re-entry for secondary. There will be an additional health and safety update to the Board of Education on Monday, October 26th. I know that you received the presentation that Steve Barr's committee, led by Steve Barr, but in collaboration with several teachers, came up with safety protocols. So there will be a lot of discussion and reminders about PPE and all of the other safety protocols that are taking place or have taken place to ensure everyone's safety. So that is officially the end of my presentation. I think I wisely did not read the chat. However, I'm happy to entertain any questions from the board.
I have one.
All right. I will call on the board members that are here one by one, and I'll start with Trustee Smith.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So, my concern, you know, and I appreciate the plan, and it is something that we have to give considerable thought to, based on the fact that right now, we're not looking at this, if this right now is a wave or a blip. And I say this, I told Mr. Hoyter that, I told President Hoyter that I would not incorporate my attendance, my learning of what I was able to pick up at the Michigan Health Association, the meeting. However, my concern is now that we're looking at this being right now either a wave or is it a blip? So we're watching that. And evidently, eventually they have what they call this epicurve that they're watching. And Dr. Hitchcock, I know you attend those meetings as well.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Smith. That is what the epidemiologist told us on Monday when we met with her. Was Monday just yesterday? Oh no, today is Monday. So we met with her last Monday.
Right.
She said to us, right now they're trying to determine. So that was 7 days ago. You know, a lot can happen in 7 days.
Right.
But they were trying to determine, was this spike a blip, like you said,
Yesterday, today is
or
Monday.
was this the start of the second wave?
Right.
She indicated that she would be more than willing to meet with us, meet with teachers, if they would like to do that, but that she would know more about that within the next week. So our goal is, I'll be meeting with her again on Thursday. That's why I got confused, because we met with her as an Oak Park cabinet on Monday. I met with her again as a superintendent group on Thursday. And she indicated that they're trying to determine, is this a blip or is this the second wave? Right. If this is the second wave, we're gonna have some time between now and the week after Thanksgiving to understand if this is truly the second wave and there's a peak that goes up again, I am very comfortable saying we cannot even return with our learning hub model during the week after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Mr. Doherty, you're on mute.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Trustee Goodfriend?
Thank you. Dr. Hitchcock, there were certain things that I have grave concerns, I think, as we all do in regards to the virus and the spreading of it. But there was one area when we were talking about, you were talking about the children K through 5 going back to school, and the drop off, well, we know that would be families dropping them off. But the pickup of youngsters, how do we know? How are we going to feel secure that they're going, you know, maybe it's an aunt that the children know, but maybe that's a person that should not be picking them up. So for safety reasons, how do we be careful that they're going into, if it's a car, with somebody that would be responsible for them, that we know they should be going with?
Well, we would be asking parents to follow the same safety protocols for pickup that we currently provide in a non-COVID time period.
Mhm.
One of the things with the little ones that we've discussed and that I've had some success with in the past is attaching a name tag with a color and the kid's last name to their backpack or a lanyard, and having the same tag in color in the car window. But if somebody different picks them up, that's not going to necessarily work. So we'd have to look at their driver's license and make sure that they are listed on the emergency card to pick them up, which is the same procedure that we use during non-COVID times.
So would that be by our professional staff, their teachers, or would we have security that would do that? I mean, you know, how would that be set up?
That's one of the things that we can determine in our committees. I would love to say that we had every answer and all of these issues all figured out. But it's just not possible. No school in the country or internationally has them figured out. But what we can do is collaborate with the staff that we have identified on our committees, learn from other school districts, how they're managing that to assure that students are connected to the right family member to be picked up. Worst comes to worst, the administrative staff draws the short stick, and they're the ones who have to assist with pickup and drop off. But I'm confident that if we can manage all of these other things, quite frankly, I think we'll be able to figure that piece out. I just think we have to work together to come up with a solution. And if that continues to, if that happens a lot, if it becomes frequent, then we would have to adjust. But, you know, there are students that ride our buses home every day, and our hope is that the right person is picking them up from the bus stop and assuring that they get home.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that makes sense. I mean, there's if they take our school bus home, you know, we're in a similar situation where we're hoping there is a responsible staff member there to pick them up. If there's not, then the bus driver brings them back to school. In this situation, if the responsible staff member that checks the ID and the person is not on their list of contacts, then they would not let them go with that child, with that adult.
I see. Another thing is, what other schools within our vicinity are already working at this model, similar models?
Right now, Ferndale, I know for sure that Ferndale, Detroit, and I believe Royal Oak has, when you say working at this model, do you mean like the learning hub model?
Yes.
Those are the three that I am familiar with right now. I know Berkeley is also thinking of returning their pre-K through 5 students early on.
Okay.
Earlier, I believe earlier than January 4th.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Trustee Goodfriend. Trustee Corcoran?
Yes, good evening, Dr. Hitchcock.
Good evening.
Can anyone? Oh, I think I have a delay on my
Yeah, you breaking up a
phone.
little bit, Dawn.
I've been having a lot of problems. Can you guys hear me?
We can, but you sound
Okay,
sort
can
of
you?
like delayed a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna say it fast. I only have a problem with
Ooh,
We totally lost you there. We
Yeah.
couldn't hear anything that you said.
PPE
PP.
with the mask.
One more time for me, or do you think you could type it in the chat?
Oh, boy.
I know you said PPE. Do you want us to share more about our PPE?
Yes, that's what I'll do.
Okay. Steve, do you want to talk about the PPE?
Sure. We have, and we've had for months, a significant amount of PPE in the district, whether it's masks, medical masks, surgical masks. We have over 11,000 custom cloth masks on order for students and staff that don't have them. We have thermometers as necessary. We have sanitizers. We have cleaning supplies. We have special cleaning machines in case there is an illness somewhere in the school or in the building. We have quite a supply of PPE that's I would say second to nobody in terms of how much we have. We're getting gowns in case those are needed in a nursing area in the event someone has symptoms or signs of PPE. And we're working with Vanessa, our school, hopefully future school nurse, and some other nurses with making sure that we're on a good path. We have lots of signage that'll be in the next few days that's going to go in the schools, directional signage, informational signage. It's not PPE, but it's related to that. So we have a huge arsenal of PPE. We had a recommendation from a teacher several months ago regarding the shields that staff can wear. That it's actually almost got a bib on the bottom that I think one of our nurses said that's better than they have. That is available if staff want to have something like that. And we bought 320 of those. So there's been no lack of purchasing PPE. We have a lot. So let's just say that we have hundreds and thousands of different types of PPE available. Everything that's recommended and then some. We have $120,000 of new custodial equipment, which they've been trained on. So we're prepared on the operation side. And I know there's lots of comments about mechanical systems and temperatures and this and that. You know, those have been worked on. Is everything perfect? You know, nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect, whether it's pre-COVID, post-COVID. But we're sure working our darndest on every single thing almost every day. We've had staff in the building since April. They don't have the opportunity to work, you know, remotely like many of us do. So we already have buses in operation. Just as another thing that are already transporting some private school kids and some students that go to center programs. They're working out any bugs they have there in terms of, if there are any, which there really aren't. So we think we're in a good place. And of course, we're still tweaking things. It's only October 19th.
Okay. I can't hear you, Dawn. Did you say something else?
We have that many, but I'll just I typed it in the chat.
I can hear you clearly now. Do you want to just go ahead and?
Yes. Oh, I don't know when I am being heard clearly or not.
Mhm.
Okay. I was just asking in regards to the mask because I did hear that we would maybe ask the students to maybe clean their mask. But the reason why I was asking of how much or how many PPE masks we have, if we could give out like a mask or two for the day to the children, because if we start depending on the child or the children to clean their mask versus us handing out masks, I just believe that it would help a little bit more, because then if they're dependent on bringing their own mask, then they don't have a mask. But if we're distributing the mask per day, or the teacher or however it's distributed at the door, when they come into the building, because I know that you have to have a mask just to enter the building. And if so, if we have a visitor happen to come to the school, do we have the mask right at the door in
Mhm.
case they don't have a mask? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
So first of all, just to jump back, they have to have a mask on the bus. So it's not just to get in the school. So they'll have to have one be on the bus the whole time. We have cloth masks that we've purchased. We have disposable masks that we've purchased. But if we passed out 2 disposable masks to every student every day, we would spend close to $500,000. And I really don't think that's probably something that we want to do. I think we do need to give some guidance, and we're looking at various ways of educating families in terms of laundering masks. We've made quite an investment, over $30,000 in cloth masks that are coming in, and they're washable. It doesn't take very long, and we need to educate people on how important it is to do that. That includes staff. I think we can all look at ourselves and say, how often do you launder your cloth mask? And I think most of us would say it's probably not daily. So we need to really educate everybody, including our staff and our kids and our parents, on the proper measures in terms of keeping those masks clean.
I think
Right.
it's also important to note that, we're going to be asking parents to wash these masks, but if they don't have them, we're prepared to give them to them.
Mhm.
But I just think from a waste and just a financial standpoint, there will be some parents that will do it. And the ones that do, then that's great. We really appreciate it. The ones that don't, then we're going to have masks available. And the great thing is that there are washers, there's at least 2 sets of washers and dryers at the high school. So if we find that we have to find someone, either a volunteer or pay someone extra to wash the masks for the kids, then we can look into doing that too.
Okay, Trustee Corcoran, did you have another question?
Thank you. I just know that
we're losing you again. I don't know if you moved or your square moved
no,
on my screen. Now we can't.
I know that. Okay.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Okay,
We
what
can
about
hear you
now? Okay, wonderful. I'm going to stand as still as a scarecrow right now. I was just saying, every news channel, every local, every national news channel, every health provider, they're always talking about masks. And I know I heard the $1 million number about how much it will cost, but I just know that we're not coming back to school full force. But what we're coming back to, I'm just, saying until we get everyone acclimated to how they're going to wash the mask, when they're going to wash the mask, how they're going to set an appointment to clean the mask, with our washers and dryers. I just would love to see that we have a multitude of masks available in the beginning for that transition, because that is very, very, very extremely important.
Mhm.
Is the mask and washing the hands. That's, those two have to go hand in hand. So that's
We have thousands of disposable masks available. So if a student
okay.
tries to get on a bus without a mask, they will be handed a mask to put on, a disposable mask to put on. So this is not a if, it's just a how it's going to be done. And, I just go back to, and I'm reading the thousands of comments, and it's easy to sit on that side of the table. There's no perfect solution for everything. There's nothing perfect. But it's also not perfect when virtual students aren't learning very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Corcoran. Trustee Klein?
Thank you, President Hoyda. I do have a couple questions, and I'll make everybody happy. I've also been reading the chats, and some of my questions come from the chat. Good questions over there. Obviously,
No, there isn't justify on what I do every day.
Okay. President Hoyda, can you mute whoever that is?
I believe they muted themselves.
All right. First of all, obviously, I appreciate the shout out, Dr. Hitchcock, and I love the idea of the hubs. For many, many months, I've expressed the concern that there are kids who don't have safe environments at home. There are kids who live in single parent homes with single incomes that are going through things that I don't even want to think about. There are kids that don't have food to eat, and this brings these kids into a safe environment for many hours every day, back to some sense of normalcy, albeit with some material differences. They have steady food here. They're safe. They have access to counselors in person without potentially having a dangerous figure looking over their shoulder during a virtual call. And all those things are just fantastic and really make me feel a lot better. And I also appreciate everything the district is doing to keep everybody safe with the pandemic. At the same time, like Steve said, there's nothing perfect, but this is a tremendous move. I have a few questions. First of all, in terms of the plan to bring kids back, we have we're moving in steps. I'm curious why we're bringing back the K through 5 first, how that decision was made, and why not start with the high school, or why not, they're in different buildings anyways. Obviously, we have multiple different buildings. Why are we breaking it down by age group in terms of who to bring back first?
The age group piece is primarily, in my mind, due to childcare. We know that care is the biggest issue, but if we don't want to bring back pre-K through 5, I mean, there's no COVID police right now that are saying you have to do it this way. If that committee of group gets together and they say, you know what, I think we should bring the older kids back first, because I think that is a system that can work better, I'm open to that. I remain committed to trying to do what's in the best interest of students. We are not attempting to go back to school on Monday. We're not going to make anybody sacrificial lambs. I didn't
mean to suggest.
No. I was also trying to work in a few chat things.
I know that you guys put so much thought into every piece.
We really, I swear to you, I would not make one teacher on this call a sacrificial lamb. If it gets bad, or if this second wave continues, we're not going to do it. But so I just don't want people to get too stressed out about this right now, because this is the plan right now. Next Monday, you guys know how quickly this is changing. It could go sky high and we could be like, oh my goodness, we can't do it. But we have to come up with some type of plan. We have to do something. We can't just say, you know, we can't do anything. So I'm sorry. I don't know, Mr. Klein, you always get stuck in my world of comments. I'm sorry about that. But go ahead. What was your second question?
You know, it's interesting because at the school that my wife teaches at, they also started by bringing back the younger kids, and I have to presume it was the same reason. But
For me, it was just childcare, because it sounds like the parents of the younger kids are sort of pulling their hair out, and so
the older kids can babysit themselves.
Oh, and that's a great point. Not that I'm responding to the chat, of course, but the cohorting for the elementary kids is a great point. We can keep the elementary kids in that classroom, and their specials teachers can come to them. They can even eat in the classroom. And so we can control their whereabouts a lot better than what we can control secondary. And if we can start there and make that work, it may help us inform the secondary decisions.
That's exactly what's going on, both where my kids go to school and where my wife teaches, that they're keeping the younger kids in the classroom. And it's actually worked out really well. They've all been in school since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
One thing that they did that I will suggest to the administration, I saw somebody mention this on the chat also. My younger kids have lanyards or necklaces that grip the mask. And that way, when they're running or somebody knocks it or something like that, they don't lose their mask on the way to school. And also, I can make sure that I can see it when they leave the door heading to the bus. It helps a lot, and I'll suggest that to the district. I don't want to add.
Oh, love that. That's a great idea.
You know, you can brand it Oak Park School, you know, little thing that grips the mask. That's helped a lot. In terms of enrollment for the gradual coming back situation, you might have covered this. I was a minute or two late. I apologize. Is there an official registration or some sort of survey that's going to go out so that there's an understanding of how many kids are going to participate in each stage of the coming back?
Yep, we've been discussing that, and the best solution that we have as of 8:15 on October 19th is we followed this process of asking the teachers to help us call home for the Chromebook distribution. So we would be asking people to make contact. So it was elementary classroom teachers, and I believe first hour at the secondary level. Folks called, made a personal phone call where we'll try to get a commitment. Now I'm going to tell you, it's still going to be tough. So we have to include a little buffer in that, because I myself I'm one of those parents that told them one thing and then 2 weeks later changed my thing. I'm that type. And I think other parents are going to do that as well. So we're going to have to build in a buffer and then try to stay strong to our commitment of what they choose.
The next two that I got are straight from the chat. Somebody asked a great question, and we actually already mentioned it, cohorting for the high school kids. Do we have a plan for that yet, or is that still in the works?
Cohorting at the high school level, right now in my mind, I'm not an Oak Park High School expert, but what I am saying is right now it's going to be tough to cohort at a high school level because the kids are in mixed courses with various grade levels. So the thinking we had, I'll just go ahead and roll it out there, was some type of hybrid model where we would have an A day and a B day to decrease the number of high school students who are in the building at one time.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Also, to take it off the top, for cohorting, you can have all the kids sit on the laptops, and as long as everybody has headphones, then two kids sitting next to each other aren't necessarily in the same class. I'm not, you can have, as long as the kids are sitting in the same classroom, they can literally be in different classes with a proctor just watching to keep everybody steady and make sure that everybody's got their headphones on and isn't bothering the person next to them. It's virtual learning, but on campus. So it achieves the goals of safety and making sure that the kids are actually attending their classes, but at the same time also avoids them transferring and walking through the halls. Just a thought.
That's definitely something that we can consider. And, I'm open to all of the suggestions that are in the chat. I say, man, let your voice be heard. Join a committee. Help us figure it out. Because we're not sitting here saying we have all the answers, but we are saying we have a lot of issues. And, some of them are tough. Some of the issues are going to have a financial impact that could potentially be a huge blow to the district. And I understand that. I understand the fear and frustration, but right now we're making a choice between two really bad options. One is to not meet the needs of our families and risk families making a choice to go somewhere else. 40%, we've already lost 300 students. And taking a chance at seeing if we can creep our way into a safe plan to return. They're two really, neither one of those options are good. But, we have to do our best to choose something.
What is the plan, or what has been the discussion in terms of if there is a positive from a student who has been in school or a teacher who has been in school?
There is a protocol and a system in place from the Oakland County Health Department that we have to report that case to the epidemiologist right away. We explain what the variables are for that particular situation because each situation is different. Is it a kid with symptoms? Is it a kid who has a positive test? Is it a kid who's been around somebody with a positive test? I actually have the epidemiologist on my cell phone, and I dial her up if we have a positive case. And based on the variables, we take direction from her. We're prepared, like we did, if you recall, all the way back to March 12th, to close the school. Not only did we close the school where we thought someone had been exposed, we closed the entire district because we knew that there were shared staff, there were, it was a blended family. And so that child could have come into contact with people from other buildings. So before Governor Whitmer closed schools, it's been so long ago, you may not remember this, but we as a district closed the school district down because someone had contact with someone who tested positive.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock. As always, you guys do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
All right.
Good friend had her hand up.
Well, I have a couple questions, then I'll go to Trustee Goodfriend. Dr. Hitchcock, if there's a student who can't wear a mask for health reasons, or a staff member who has a health condition that either prevents them from wearing a mask or puts them at greater risk for contracting the disease, do we have a plan in place for those types of situations?
I don't know if Carol wants to speak to that. In my mind, I have been told that they have determined that there is no health reason for someone not to wear a mask. I know that one of our nurses is on, Miss Long, either Carol or Vanessa. Do you want to speak to that?
I'll say a few things and then I'll send it over to Vanessa. And it's a great segue to introduce Vanessa. She was approved by the board this evening, and by just so many blessings she has come our way. She was working as a representative from the Oakland County Health Department, and our district nurse unfortunately had to resign. And day one, she was a rock star. So I'll say a few things about HR. I think it would be very helpful if we worked in collaboration with the OPEA and OPESPA to identify staff that feel comfortable coming in to start with, and identify the staff who have complications or might have predisposed to conditions. So if we are able to kind of identify groups of people that may have something impacting them so they cannot come in, we can identify roles for them to remain at home. And then those teachers who are anxious to come back and are healthy or don't have predisposed conditions or taking care of folks that are at risk, then we can start to identify. One of the reasons why Jamie put the numbers in there, how many per building, was to start kind of planting seeds of, we're not talking all the staff at once coming back. We're talking about a small number and starting somewhere to see where it will go. And that's what our epidemiologist expressed as well, that this is something where we have to start somewhere. Coming all back, all 250 staff and 41 or so paraprofessionals all coming back at once is not what we're suggesting at all. And then of course, our students, we're suggesting a slow phase in and see where it goes from there. Vanessa might have some more specific things to say about the health end of it. I don't want to put her on the spot her first night, but if you're comfortable, Vanessa, I will throw you the mic.
Hi, first, hello everyone. Excited to be here. I know that with mask wearing, just to address that specific question, the AAP, the Academy of Pediatrics, just released a statement, and so did the Allergy and Asthma Association. There are very few reasons why any individual should wear a mask. And right now, the current recommendation is if they are high risk because they can't wear a mask, they recommend them staying virtual. That is the recommendation, but that would have to be a policy that we'd have to put in place. But right now they recommend mask wearing for everyone. There are very few identified reasons why you can't wear a mask. There are some sensory issues. Those will have to be addressed individually for that student. But overall, the current recommendation is even with asthmatics or most conditions, they have not identified anything that would put you at risk for wearing a mask. In fact, those individuals are at higher risk of contracting COVID and having complications from COVID, so they need to be protected even more. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Steve, did you want to say something? Okay, my other question has to do with security. So we do not have security staff in the building right now because we don't have students in the building right now. We also have a contract with security that has expired. Do we have a plan to make sure that there is security in the building once there are students in the building?
Yes.
I've spoken with the security company and that's in process. You know, it depends obviously how many kids we're going to have. If we have 3 kids, it's going to be a different story. But yes, we are working on that plan with John Allen and Deanne Burr almost on a daily basis. Yes.
Okay.
So just to be very explicit, when kids are back, we will have security.
Yep.
And then the original plan, Steve, that you and your team had created called for teachers in the high school to be cleaning desks in between classes. do we anticipate that's going to be the same plan going forward?
I don't think it was teachers cleaning desks. We're doing these, I'll call them do-it-yourself wipe systems where we're creating our own wipe buckets by buying buckets, wipes, and I will call it I don't want to get the wrong term, but EPA or MIOSHA, I forgot the term now, safe. It's like basically a wipe that does not require PPE to be worn. It's right on the MSDS sheet or MDS sheet. And it would really be, other districts have done this, where the student is the one that would wipe their individual desk, not the teacher. So it's their area to, their laptop / Chromebook to take care of at the end of the class period.
Okay. And then there's a lot of concern, obviously, in the chat about the maintenance staff following through on things. So I don't know if Steve, I don't know if both Steves are on the call, but if you can speak to what steps are being taken to follow up and make sure things are being done as they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a training and process, and we literally spoke today as we were finalizing this draft of the plan, and we will be having extensive conversations and extensive education with them. There's maintenance staff, which is separate from custodial in the buildings, and we don't have 10 maintenance staff for our 6 buildings, but they're in our buildings along with contracted staff on a daily basis, looking at maintenance issues if there are any, in certain classrooms. One comment I wanted to make is when we talk about cleaning desks, they have what's called a kill time, which is if any kind of germs get on the desk, and the things that we talk about have a 1-minute kill time. So when you talk about, I believe it's 5 minutes between periods, these are 1-minute type kill times, which is what is critical that you use when you're going between class periods. Let's not forget, we haven't talked yet about any plan where students share desks. We haven't talked about a plan where students share desks anywhere between now and January 18th. Students are in their own spot if they opt to come back to school. So there's no one's going to be sharing another spot. But when they do come back, we have a plan for that also, if and when they come back in the future, which would not be, so elementary kids, they cohort, they're in their area, they're in their spot. We would have to have cohorting on playgrounds also, where you don't have 3 classes sharing a playground structure at the same time. So lots of operational features that, we're working on. Is everything worked out yet? We're getting close. There's always things that change by the minute, by the day. And that's the nice thing, is we're learning from other districts, some of their rights and some of their things that they need to adjust. So I'm glad we weren't first.
Okay. And then
one of the things, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Hitchcock.
I think it's important to note is the protocol that we followed for this return to school plan is the exact same protocol that we had last time. We provided a framework and recommendation to the board, and then there was a more detailed plan with the teachers on how we were going to go about implementing that plan. But this is the same protocol that we used last time. I just think that some people, based on the chat, seem that they disagree with this plan, but it's the same process, I should say. The same, we provided a framework. We asked the committees to get together and hammer out some of the key details, but it's the same process that we followed previously.
Okay. And then I want to say a word about, I want to ask our nurse, because I think it's important to understand the epidemiology of this. And as Trustee Smith mentioned earlier, there's been a bi-weekly meeting for board presidents with the Oakland County Health Division. There have been a couple times that I wasn't able to attend, and Trustee Smith attended in my place. And then sent his notes to me, which I really appreciate. And what I've been learning from that is that it can be that there are some things that we can see on the news that might be a little bit misleading. Something I often caution my clients about in my clinical practice is it's always important to remember that local TV news makes their money on making sure people pay attention. So there's always an incentive to sort of ratchet up the fear factor, the anxiety factor. But when we talk about, so I really want to talk about two things. One is when we talk about school breakouts, when we see the number of breakouts that are occurring in schools, is that talking about breakouts that have been traced back to classroom instances, or is that does that also include other types of breakouts?
So in order to be classified as right now, breakout or a cluster, you need to have 2 cases identified that were related. So if someone is at a party and they got it from the party, they show up positive, but they happen to be a student in a school district, but somebody else got infected from somewhere else, those are not related cases. So the cases need to be related in order for it to be considered a cluster. And that's 2 individuals who are within 6 feet distance of each other. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay.
Mr. Hoyt, if I can just comment, we spoke with the epidemiologist and the head nurse about this, and there is, I think there's probably some inconsistency in the way that some of the school data is being reported. An example is where I know several kids that have gone to schools where they're being listed as in that school listing of they had an outbreak in this school, and those outbreaks did not happen at the school. It's kids are at parties, or kids are here, or kids are there. So, or they went to Michigan State and got sick or whatever. So it's not necessarily, they list them, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it happened at the school. So that's the hard part with data that we're seeing from the state when they're releasing these school quote unquote outbreaks.
And oak.gov is a good source just to see. I don't know if you've been on the website for Oakland County Health Department. Now they have actually data that you can see. It's a little bit late, but you can actually see the trends in communities. So you can see the community spread, which that's an important factor when you're discussing like spread. Community spread is looking at the county, the city that you're looking at. But not all cases identified by students are cases that are considered clustered. So the contact tracers in the health department would go back and identify anyone who was within that 6-foot distance for more than 15 minutes. So those are cases where they might quarantine students if there was an identified case within the school.
Okay. And then when we look at comparing rates, let's say to April and March when there was far less testing, are we comparing apples to apples?
That is a good question for our epidemiologist. We don't have, it's fluid. It's so fluid that our testing is better, but what are our effective tests? Our PCRs are our gold standards versus the rapid testing. We have better tests now. We have more access to tests. We are testing more, but it's a fluid situation. Epidemiologist is really good at giving you all the percentages and things though.
And I want to be clear as well, the reason that we're not meeting in person, when we considered meeting in person, really the only way that we could meet in person as a school board would be either to not have public participation in person with us, or to move to the auditorium where we wouldn't be able to live stream or have any remote participation. And so while for the 7 of us or 10 of us or even 20 of us to meet in person would certainly be safe. We wanted to make sure these meetings are have the maximum opportunity for public participation in the meeting, and that's why we felt that this was the best way. Trustee Goodfriend.
Thank you. It appeared to be a monopoly that was going on here. I do have several questions, and I would like to have the time to get the answers and further the questions. I have been reading the chat. That's number one. And I would like to know, in regards to the cleaning, just particularly, what seems to be the problem. We have Burr now doing our custodial, and I know there's been unhappiness in the past. Okay. How are you going to assure our staff that their buildings and their rooms will be cleaned every day, trash being taken out, desks wiped down, floors wiped, whatever has to be done that is the protocol is going to be done. It's only fair to the staff because we do sit at home, some of us, and we do have Zoom. Some of us have Zoom meetings rather than coming in the office. I'm not one of them. I work every day. I wear a mask daily, constantly for 8 hours when I'm in my office. However, the cleanliness in my office is very superior to what I'm reading that's happening in our buildings. I believe that we have to be able to prove to this staff of the cleanliness and the health-wise being upkeep daily for our staff as well as our students. This is terribly important, and the staff is just as important as I am or you, any of you are, whether it's administration or this board. So I would like to know, and I would like, certainly you have these ad hoc committees. Who's on the ad hoc committee? How are you speaking to other staff members so that they have input into this rather than just on this chat room? It appears that we have fear, and I can understand it. I fear every day, and I'm concerned every day, in the news every day, and I'm no different, and nor are they any different than I am, nor with their homes and their families. So please give some answers to what is happening for our staff as well as the cleanliness of our students. So I don't know what's just happened to the screen, and there's been something of considerations that has been put up, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking for common sense to meet with our staff, and I'm sure it has to be done in size amounts. We have an auditorium that can fit more persons within the 6 feet of each other, and they have grave concerns, and I understand them, and I'm sure you understand them too. However, we're not getting the message out to them, as well as the children. Children are children, and yes, I guess it would be good if we can start with the pre-K, the K through 5. That would help with some challenges that the families have. But then again, we have students that are going on into higher education and the higher grades, and they need help as well. So I just think we have to take in consideration of our staff, consideration of our children, consideration of, I don't know who's putting it up, but
that's me, Ms. Goodfriend.
okay.
I'm trying to parse out your question.
Okay,
So the
thank
first question, I think, was how can we prove to the staff
Yes.
that cleaning is happening? I'm not sure how we can prove to them. We can share with them a cleaning schedule. We can have one of the DM Burr representatives, as well as Steve Barr and Burnett, come and speak to the board. We can, have them sign off on the rooms that they've cleaned. I believe that's the procedure they're following now. But in terms of proving that to them, I'm not sure what that would look like, but if you get some ideas from anyone that you're familiar with or other school districts where that proof or evidence, what that proof or evidence is, we could certainly do our best to accommodate that. The next thing is, question was something about why are we at home? We're at home right now because everybody is at home right now. Every person in the school district is afforded the opportunity to work from home currently. We did not force anyone to come into the building, and our proposed plan is not changing until we invite a limited number of students in following Thanksgiving if it's safe. So the impression, or maybe the inference that I am mistaken about, is that we're asking them to do something that we're not doing. We haven't asked anyone to do anything that we're not doing. We're at home, the staff's at home, and we support that.
I'm not inferring anything in regards to our administration, nothing. I'm talking about a population, all of us.
Oh, so, no, I mean, all of us are, everybody in the district is at home.
Well,
I mean, there are some people who've chosen to work either at school or some people who've chosen to work at the ad building, but no one has been forced to do anything.
Yes, I understand that, Dr. Hitchcock. And I'm not saying that anyone has been forced into it, but we have discomfort and fear among our staff. We have discomfort and fear among our families with their children too. We have discomfort in this community, and we have to be able to provide the evidence of cleanliness, number one, of our buildings. And so what has happened in the past is holding on to what the people believe will happen in the future. And I do believe that it would be very advantageous for a committee other than the ad hoc committee, others, staff members, union members, whomever, Mr. Bondano, Mr. Adamson.
Oh, those two people that you named are on the committees. That's the great thing. I think there's some confusion about that, that there are union members on these committees. The committees have not met because we followed the same process as last time. We built a framework in a recommendation, and then these 3 committees helped us detail out exactly what that would look like. That's the same process we're planning to follow now. That's why it's listed.
Well, I do believe that we need other staff members to come in to feel secure that they're going into rooms that have the cleanliness.
I think we should rise to a point of order, please.
Excuse me.
A point of order.
I did not interrupt anybody that took the time to discuss some things.
I think this is becoming.
There's a point of order. Mr. Smith, what's your point of order?
Yeah, point of order is that I say that we concentrate on what the plan is right now. I think that we're starting to
Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, that's not
a point of order.
That's not a point of order. Trustee Goodfriend, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyta. So what I'm saying is, I do believe, Dr. Hitchcock, you do have an ad hoc committee, but we have to be able to provide
3 ad hoc committees.
Okay, you have to be able to provide others that have stated here this evening that they've been in their rooms, some of their rooms, and they've not been cleaned. So in essence, what I'm asking is that we have others, as well as Mr. Bondano, as well as the OPEA leadership, to be able to come in to give them the comfort, okay, not to take away the total fear, because we all are living with fear.
Yeah,
all of us.
I think that's an important point, Ms. Goodfriend, that you share, that we're all fearful.
That's right.
We're all anxious. And it's a national and international issue.
That's right. So we have to really get the cooperation of our staff and help alleviate some of the grave fears they have. We all have types of illnesses or problems that we could catch is something easily. I know I do. I know there must be many others that have the same things. I know there are other board members that have some weak spots in their health. So it's what I'm saying is we have to have, if we want to do this, and I would like to see us to do this. I'm not saying not to do this and to put this into operation, but I am saying is we have to work with our teachers and our parents to provide them with the evidence that we really have these wonderful buildings. Yes, I'm one of those board members that approved the purchase of all this new equipment. I'm not saying I did not, I did, with the hopes that this would alleviate the cleanliness, the non-cleanliness of the buildings. That's what I'm saying, and I would like to be able to say to you is I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm questioning why we can't have others to be able to feel comfort, if it's parents and staff, to be able to have more comfort in letting their youngsters begin in the new phases. Thank you.
And I don't disagree with you, Ms. Goodfriend. I just don't know what that evidence would be. I'm trying to understand what the evidence is, so we can talk about that offline. We can talk together.
I want to make sure I understand clearly what we're talking about here, Dr. Hitchcock, if you could help me, because I think the conversation may have kind of become confusing. So we're talking, what you're proposing today is a framework, which if it's approved by the board next week, would mean that a very small number of students would have the opportunity of special ed students, of 504 students, a very small number would have the opportunity to return to school a month from now. And then we would
offer the opportunity.
Right, and that we would offer the opportunity to return to school 2.5 months from now, which is when we'd be talking about staff coming back to the buildings. And between now and then, we're going to be monitoring the numbers, and if they continue to trend upward as they are right now, that we have the flexibility to change that. But this is a framework assuming that it is determined by the health professionals and the epidemiologists that it is safe for us to offer that opportunity in January, in mid-January,
Yes.
3 months from now.
Yes, and we, in any teacher, the teachers who indicated in the chat that they were in their room recently and it appeared that they weren't cleaned, if you could email your principal that information, and we'll ask the principals to give us a list at central office so those folks can be held accountable. We can definitely do that.
Thank you.
We want people to feel a sense of comfort. I just think it's a difficult time for everyone to feel, to not feel fearful or anxious, because it's a very fearful and anxious time. I just, based on the comments, I'm feeling like there's a lot of anxiety.
That's right.
And I feel like we're jumping the gun to this is what exactly is going to happen. I still think we're in a similar place where we said we were going to provide an update about what we were going to do second quarter. We're only opening second quarter on a limited amount of students, and we have a month and a half. Anything could happen in a month and a half, and we say we can't do it like you described. So I feel like there's a lot of panic, and I just want to try to bring the temperature down. A lot of panic and finger pointing. I want to try to bring the temperature down because we remain committed to doing what is best for teachers. We have not forgotten that important piece, not at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoyter, I'd like to make a comment, please. I asked, and based on parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Order, to rise to a point of order which tests the conduct of the meeting. And I was told that that wasn't, and that is not true. And yet you said that you felt we were getting off track. And this is maybe this is a learning lesson. This is a learning point. Based on all the conversation, and I understand everybody's concern, and basically what we it's not a question. It's actually bringing order back to the room, back
So
to
Trustee Smith, as you know, Robert's Rules of Order gives full discretion on making decisions to the about decorum to the president.
Well, you can actually interrupt the speaker. You can interrupt the speaker when you rise to a point of order.
Yes.
Okay, and it doesn't require a vote.
In my understanding, a point of order is about
it brings rule.
concern of the order of the meeting, and my determination in that particular case was that the comment being made was not about the conduct of the meeting. It was a suggestion, which was a helpful suggestion, but since someone else had the floor, that was the ruling I made. I'm going to move on. Are there other board members who have questions about the superintendent's recommendation? All right, so we will move on then. And our next item is the superintendent report.
I'm just going to make a few quick comments since we are heading into the second hour of the meeting, and then turn it over to Carol. First, I'd like to thank the staff that participated in collaborating on the professional development that we had last Friday. It seemed like it was, people felt very positive about the professional development experiences. And I know the teaching and learning department appreciated everyone's input and collaboration. I think it's so meaningful to have staff involved in that process, and it seemed to go really well. On another note, it seemed like we are going to think through a schedule for parent-teacher conferences for the spring. However, I do want to say that we appreciate the work that everybody did of collecting the parents that attended their conferences. We do use that information in our annual report, and it seemed like it was really promising. So thank you for going out of your way to collect that information. And then on a really high note, I'm sure everyone has heard by now, Paul Milgram won the Nobel Peace Prize and is a graduate of Oak Park High School. And it just
prize in economics?
Yes, economics. And it just speaks to what we are able to do in public education and the many opportunities that kids have had and continue to have at Oak Park High School. So I think it's something that that should be celebrated by us all. And then I wanted to thank Peter Hahn personally for bringing snacks over to the central office. It was a very kind gesture. And I wasn't able to thank him over the email. So I just would like to take this opportunity to thank him for that extremely kind gesture. And that the rest of my time, I'll turn it over to Carol Diglio for her report.
Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock. Let me get to the beginning. So I am happy to present, and I'm assuming everyone could see the PowerPoint. I'm excited to present about school health in the Oak Park School District. I know this is causing much anxiety, and I hope that some of the things that you learned tonight that are happening behind the scenes and in the work that is going into creating a systemic program K-12 can put some minds at ease. Much of this began with just school health in general. This effort was to put in a process for school health at all the buildings in regards to students who attend school that have health needs, in terms of students who attend schools and have medication that they're required to take, or have medical emergencies that, unless we have a program in place, would otherwise jeopardize them attending public education. And so we are, much like Jamie had already said, our guiding principles are health and safety, research-based decisions, commitment to social emotional support, and a high quality instruction, and providing learning tools for success. This is our new school health overview. I'm Carol Diglio, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. I have many, many years of overseeing school health. This is a summary of what the new school year health plan looks like. I will discuss immunizations and what the district is doing to improve immunizations and confirm that all of our kids are getting immunized as scheduled, or have a immunization waiver on file. I'd like to introduce and kind of bring you up to speed about our nurses, and let everyone know that the virtual medical and mental health care provided by Ascensions is a really good opportunity for kids. If you identify or notice kids are struggling, we have our own clinic in-house. And then, of course, I cannot talk about school health without talking about the COVID-19 preparation. Early on, it was when examined and sort of took a look at the school health plan, and how we collect medication and how we follow the law as it pertains to school health. When we talk about immunizations, administration of medication, and other safety protocols, it was evident that we lacked a systemic process, common documents, common ways for parents to communicate. So it's important to note that all medical emergencies, plans, and medication needed during the school hours require proper authorization for intake, storage, distribution, and disposal. So one thing that is noted that everyone should feel confident across the district is that we now have a process where parents can communicate. You should not be in a classroom and notice a diastat or an EpiPen or something in a child's backpack without you being notified why it's there. And also, should it be in the hands of the child, depending on the age and how the intake was done. So we are putting in place, and I know this causes a lot of anxiety when you are asked to react or to step in during a medical emergency and you haven't received the proper training yet. And we are starting to put much of that in place right now. If you go to our school website and you go under community parents, and you'll see the drop-down menu, School Health K-12, you'll see now our school health plan at your own fingertips. It talks about the importance of attendance and keeping kids healthy and in school. It talks about the school protocols. And then you'll see all of these drop-down menus, much like you see on staff links. This is for parents, but it's on, anyone can get to it. You can see what our protocols are, and you can see that we have a common school health letter that will be going out every year, and it will be going prior to us coming back in person when that decision is made. Immunizations, medical and medication forms, medical plans, concussion awareness, and resources that we consistently build upon, especially during COVID. A lot of those resources are pulled in from the Oakland County Health Department and the CDC. And so we're very fortunate, and I'll talk a little bit about our school nurses in a bit, but we're very fortunate to have really good nurses that are assigned to our district that are helping us build our resources as well. Medication, the plan really is that we want to make sure medication administration during school hours are permitted only when if there's failure to do so, it jeopardizes the health of students. The student would not be able to attend school, or a child is disabled and requires the medication to benefit their learning and their education program. And there has to be proper documentation in place for all of these things, whether it's prescription medication or non-prescription, and it is the district personnel cannot accept medications or administer a medication without documentation from a physician. This is very highly monitored and should be. And while it is a learning curve, we are doing a lot at the building level with the principals and the administrative assistants, and even some teachers that are in the building who have been identified as team members on the school health plan committee. The new health plan, again, I'm just parceling out the prescription versus non-prescription. All medication has to be in the original containers. It has to have the student name on it and the dosage. The school cannot provide any non-prescription. You cannot give kids Tylenol, even cough drops. A Kleenex, yes, but that's not medicine. You cannot give Advil or anything that is even non-prescription. If the child requires that, it has to come from the parent with physician notes, and parents are responsible for checking and making sure that the medication is kept up to date. I want to also talk deeply about immunizations because we have work to do in the district. It is not a new law. Since 1978, Michigan law requires that students who register and enroll in a district has to have their immunizations up to date, and no child can be admitted or be in school or shall not be in school if they are not up to date with their medications. It is our board policy 2007 that, except otherwise specifically provided by law, the board requires that all students be properly immunized no later than the first day of school. And our goal is that 100% of our OPSD students are up to date with their immunizations or are able to provide us with a valid waiver. And again, no students will be permitted to begin in-person school unless immunizations are current or they present a valid waiver. This has been a really major task and effort to get students immunized. There's been lots of layers and lots of information going out to homes, one-on-one phone calls, social media blasts. It's in the Oak Park Advantage every week. Brandon Giles has done robocalls as it relates to immunizations, and we are setting up our own immunization fairs in district. Current status, we have to, by November 1st, report all of our kindergarten, grade 7, and new students. And per the law, we're supposed to be at 90%. And February 1st, we're supposed to be at 95% of all kids immunized. We are creating systems around school health. We have identified a MICR administrative assistant who's championed this. It's Shelley Sherman out of the Office of Human Resources. We have built new MICR rosters. We have trained all the principals and 2 secretaries at every building. We've created common messaging for the building and district. And again, as I mentioned, lots of social media blasts, calling individual homes, hosting immunization fairs are coming up, and working with Oakland schools and the Oakland County Health Department nurses. It's important to note what Dr. Hitchcock said earlier about our findings. We are working closely with our epidemiologists so that we can get the proper information from students that reside across 100 different zip codes. And that work continues to go on, and we are very committed to identifying what our kids need and and making an effort to make sure they get everything that they need. These are just slides to show and these are all on our website as well, what is recommended for our immunizations for young kids. There's also documents that show what the expectations are for the older kids. Kindergarten and 7th grade are the 2 big years when kids are immunized. But if they don't hit their marks at those age groups, it is not something that we just say, well, we'll just let them, we didn't catch them as kindergartners, so we'll let them glide through elementary school until they're caught up in 7th grade. That's just not acceptable. And so we are putting parameters in place to slow that down. We do a lot of, again, notification. We created our own flyer so that we can notify Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb students where they can go. And then our school nurses send us flyers all the time for areas, local areas for free immunizations, and we get those notices out immediately. I'd like to, let you know that our Oak Park school nurse, I now can move Vanessa Long's name up to the top there. She was board approved this evening. You heard from her this evening. She is amazing. I want to let you know that she is leaving her NICU position at William Beaumont, Troy, to work with the Oak Park School District. But to her character, will still work the Thanksgiving shifts she picked up. So no one is disappointed that she had picked up shifts for other people, and she's going to make sure she takes care of that, which speaks volumes to who she is as an individual. We had to work closely with each other and kind of give her what schools really need. The reason why she was selected for this is she already knows what we need, and she's the right individual to be in our corner and be educated and lead our other 2 nurses, Madison Sabbath and Mackenzie Joy, to better health and better practices in our district. I'm excited to have her. She has been at William Beaumont and the NICU staff, nurses staff, Children's Hospital of Detroit. She spent 5 years at the Troy Hospital in the clinic nurse 2 NICU unit. She spent 3 years in Detroit, again in the NICU unit. So she has several years since 2004 worked with young kids and is smart and caring and just the right person to be at Oak Park. So I'm thrilled to introduce her. Madison and Mackenzie are nurses that have been deployed through the Oakland County Public Health School Nurse Team in partnership with Oakland Schools. While they will not be on site every day, they will have a rotation, and they are a continual resource that we have in district. And I can't be more thankful to Oakland County Public Health, our epidemiologist, our head nurse that we meet with also, and the partnership of Oakland Schools. So what we did, and hopefully this will allow our staff to know the in-depth in which we are working at every building. The nurses and I, along with Shelley Sherman, went on a tour. We spent a week between September 15th and 18th going to every elementary and assessing, listening, and learning to how do you store medication? How do you bring it in? What does your sick room look like? What are your health and safety protocols? We're required to have a quarantine room during COVID for anyone that presents symptoms. And then we also have to have another area for kids that are sent to the office because they're not feeling well, but they don't have COVID symptoms. Maybe they hit their head, bumped their knee, need some ice, cut their finger. That's a separate room. So the nurses and I went on tour and met with all the principals and 2 deep as far as administrative assistants at every building and assessed. We also discussed parent notification because when we do re-enter in person, we have to have a pre-screening process. We had to look at students with non-COVID medical plans, and we also have to look at students that present COVID symptoms as very different. We talked about immunization updates and then training needs. EpiPen training, AED training, seizure training, diabetes, concussion, and so on. And teachers will start getting this training on a regular basis as well. And teachers will be better informed of students who are sitting in their classrooms that have these medical conditions. Our findings of the tour: every building needs cabinets with cubbies that lock. Most buildings need your yellow EpiPen box. All buildings need EpiPens updated. All buildings need Sharpie containers. All buildings will need a COVID room set up, a quarantine room with dividers. We've already started looking and ordering these items. Every building needs at least 2 sick beds. We talked about nanny cams, not as just as part of the requirements is that we have to have eyes on kids when they're not well. And some of our buildings are configured where we have kids in a safe place, but we might not have direct vision. So we might think about putting some kind of camera device in there so we can keep our eyes on kids at all times. Every building will be getting direction signs, arrows in the hallways, so kids are flowing in one direction, and have the safe signs throughout there. And every school needs additional AEDs. And we're working on all of these things right now. And every school needs training. We need EpiPen, AED, seizure, diabetes training, and so on. On November 3rd, your building administrative assistants and a few others are getting AED and CPR training, so we can start that process and get folks prepared in your classes. And we also need to make sure those, not only do we need additional AEDs, we need those AEDs to be in areas where they're not locked up. So you as teachers can have access to them. And Vanessa has already started working on getting more AEDs in the district. In preparation for COVID-19, we have a Michigan Safe Schools Return to School roadmap. Mr. Barr's office worked extensively on outlining and getting all of this in place as we needed, but as Dr. Hitchcock spoke in great depth, it is a moving target. So the nurses and I are working with our Safe Schools Return roadmap and marrying it with the CDC protocols and the Oakland County Health Department protocols, so that every building will know, this is what I do if A happens, this is what I need, and these are the forms that I follow to do so. So again, it's consistent practices across the schools, but we've identified best practices that are defined by the CDC and Oakland County Health Department. We'll be talking about daily screenings and looking at that. Signs and symptoms change on a regular basis. So what are we really looking at? How do we manage in-person school? How do we manage social distancing? How do we manage workplace cleaning and disinfecting, which I know is a deep concern this evening. We have to do self-reporting, as Dr. Hitchcock mentioned, but we also have to fill out forms that go to the Department of Health. How will we bring folks into the fold when we return back to work? How will we educate? The nurses are creating, as we speak, small, short videos for kids and teachers to show 5-8 minutes at a time at different points of their classes, to start teaching kids about masks. Why are there arrows in the hallways? What is the proper way of wearing masks? What does it really mean to wash my hands? How long should I be washing them? Why do I wash them as frequently? How are we wiping desks down? So we're working on starting that education way before we start making the decision about when or how we're going to come back into the workforce. And then our record keeping at each building level, and then training students and staff prior, as I just mentioned, to in-person. PPE upon return, Dr. Steve Barr spoke about this, but mask cloth, limited disposable masks, hand sanitizer, table dividers, building signage, Clorox 360 machines, thorough cleaning and disinfecting plans, special shields for staff, gloves. And I just learned today further that we did go ahead and order some of the gowns for folks that may need that. So this has been going on for several months in preparation for the when we move forward in person. Also the COVID-19 preparation, how we're going to do pre-screening options, and then your sick rooms. This is being updated again because Mr. Burnett, our operations manager, and the nurses walked the buildings again this past Friday to go in and reconfirm where some of these COVID rooms will be, the COVID quarantine room if kids are presenting, and then where is the regular sick room going to be. So that we've already spent a week in buildings, and then Mr. Burnett freed himself up to go with the nurses to re-walk and make sure those areas that we identified are the best areas for staff and students. And then it's important to know that we have these resources right in our district. Ascensions has been wonderful partners. There are school-based health centers that offer virtual medical and mental services for students. If you look on our website, I had Mr. Giles put that up last week. Beaumont is doing free screenings and support for parents, whether we're back to school in person or not. They are accessible to our families and to you. A few weeks ago, I sent similar information out for the staff. We encourage you to take good care of yourselves. And if you don't feel comfortable going into the doctor's office right now, or if you're having trouble getting appointments, which can certainly be the case, please use those healthy avenues. I think I put them on staff links, and if I'm going to double check when this is over to make sure you have access to that material. But they have medical health and mental health available to kids. So please, if you notice your students are struggling, you can put them in the direction of our clinic that's at the high school. And then finally, these kids are counting on us. They are folks that we're working hard, all of us on this call tonight, sharing similar concerns. They're here waiting and getting your help right now, even though it's virtual, and your support. And we just need to keep banding together to make sure we're there for kids and each other, and they're counting on us. So I'm happy to stop sharing so that I can answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Carol. Are there any board members that have questions? Trustee Goodfriend?
Yes,
Sorry. Thank you, Carol. I enjoyed reading everything. It was really a revelation to what you're doing to bring into this community, and I appreciate that. The one question that I have is on school health building tours that you had, and it shows the yellow EpiPen boxes. Are we saying right now there's none at OPA, Nova, or the high school? Is that what I'm reading?
The ones that have an X need them. The ones that do not have an X have them.
Oh, they have them.
They have them if they do not have an X, but those three that do have an X, we need to make sure they have them.
So the majority is without.
Yes.
At this time.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. Yes. So by law, every school has to have 2 EpiPens supplied to them. And we have to be careful at the elementary level, they have different doses. But the one thing, Ms. Goodfriend, that we have to pay attention to is they expire. So while some buildings had them there, they were expired, and we have to get new ones on site.
And will Ms. Long be the person that will be checking those situations out?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. The other portion on that same page is, would you be kind enough to tell me what AED stands for?
Yep. It is those machines. You know what it is, right? It's the machines that are in the buildings that if
Okay.
someone goes into cardiac arrest,
All right.
will prompt you to put the pads in the proper way. And then it will prompt you, it will read the patient's vitals and heartbeat, and it will prompt you to give them a shock.
Okay. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I want Vanessa. I'm just drawing a blank. What does the actual word stand for, Vanessa, if you can remind me?
Defibrillator.
Automatic external
Yeah.
defibrillator.
Oh,
And they actually, the nice thing about the AEDs, it's automatic. We don't have to do anything other than turn it on, put the pads on, and then it will tell us. Some of them you have to push a button, others actually will just do it themselves. So it's one of the number one things we can do to save someone in cardiac arrest is actually have access to an AED. It's
thank
the
you, Ms. Long.
first
The
thing.
other thing is, what I'm questioning about this, I see that none of our schools have it at this time. Is that correct?
They have the AEDs, they just haven't been trained. The what we want to do, Miss Goodfriend, is they have one per building in most buildings. We feel like they need to be distributed throughout the buildings. So the high school should have them on each floor in different wings. The elementary should have one on each end of the buildings and in different hallways. The other thing we recognize is a lot of them are locked in the office. If something was to happen after school hours, let's say middle school basketball is going on, and a student goes down and needs an AED. Well, when it's locked in the main office, that is not doing us any good. So a lot of the gym areas should have them as well.
That's the second part of the question I wanted to ask. You filled in me with some of it, but such as our football team. Okay. What have we got? Is it available? Is it able to be near the field when our students are playing in Oak Park? Right now, it doesn't appear that that's so. Is that correct?
That's a good question. I'll look into it. I know that most athletics have their trainers, and their trainers typically have that part of their first aid kits. But I will make sure I look into that and ask the athletic department how many do they have within the department. And that's another area we can concentrate on.
I appreciate that, because to run back from the field into the building is it's wasted time.
You're right. You're right about that.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Nice report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other board members have questions for Carol?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead, Trustee Corcoran.
Good evening, Miss Carol. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, very well. Just sleepy. But I just wanted to talk about when you stated about the sick room and the quarantine room. Mr. Burnett, I can't see all the people that are here, but I guess it would probably be a question for him, because you did state that they were searching to see where it would be, I guess, more convenient. But when they went through the school, did they find it yet? Like what classrooms they were going to use?
We did.
Or they're just still debating?
We did. We're trying not to put kids in classrooms because they have to be within the same vicinity as staff members, halls, like they have to, the administrative assistants, the building principal, we have to be able to observe and keep an eye on the children. So while we did some of those building visits, some principals thought, we thought this room is vacant, that is fine if an adult can sit in that room. But we had to rethink some of that and identify things that were more convenient and within. We also looked at, do some of these rooms allow kids to go in and then their parents to pick them up without going through the school or the office again? So we looked for offices that had doors that led to exterior doors to provide privacy to kids, but also to keep the limit of how much kids are going through the building or the main office. So there was a lot of thought going into it. I know there's still thought going into it, but per the Safe Schools Roadmap Back to School, we have to have 2 separate rooms. And so that's what we're working on.
I was thinking of
Corcoran, we can't hear you.
we just had the NBA had their championship. Everyone was in what they called a bubble. And to try to find,
Go ahead, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, whew. I'm so being robbed tonight by all my great questions. But real quickly, I know that I was thinking of a plexiglass and wood. I know we have. I wish Mr. Barnett was here. I could probably ask him. But I do know that, you know, even with the construction, you know, a couple of plexiglass and some wood to probably build something like a bubble, you know, to have that person, or, you know, that person go into, if they were, you know, suspected COVID, or even, you know, just a person sick. So that's what I was going to ask him about, but I don't know, you can maybe pass that on to him.
Well, some of the things that we're looking at are curtains, like heavier curtains that can divide kids, and making sure that they're close to an area where they have a bathroom, able to wash their hands, and are away from the staff and the other students. But the key, and I know that this is sometimes a challenge, the key is to get the students picked up as immediate as possible, like getting them to their homes and back to home. And if that's not the case, then it's our jobs to make sure that the kids are cared for and nurtured during that time, and just kept separate from the other staff and students. But we are looking into dividers. Mr. Barr has, for the district, purchased some of I know you mentioned the plexiglass, but there are those see-through or plastic dividers available for classrooms, also for our secretaries, that when folks come into the building. So that some of that's been already purchased and in place in some areas.
Yeah, because I know shower curtains also work.
Yep.
I can speak to it really quick, Mrs. Corcoran. We're not
shower curtains.
We're not creating rooms. I've got all the maps from the walkthrough with Mr. Burnett, because I was with the nurses and I wasn't available last Friday. We had to divide and conquer, but there are rooms identified, as Ms. Diglio said, for the COVID quarantine room. And there is a room identified in each building. Okay. And we will create methods of division within that building if there is more than one child exhibiting symptoms concurrently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. Are there other board members that have questions? Okay, I don't see anyone, so we will move on to audience participation. This is an opportunity for the board to hear feedback from the community. I'm going to ask anyone that would like to speak in audience participation to please indicate that in the chat, and I will call on you. I'm going to ask that when speaking that you state your name and your address, and that you limit your comments to 3 minutes so that all that wish to speak have the opportunity to do so. Reminder that the board will not be responding to any comments made in the public comment period. It's an opportunity for the public to provide their feedback to the board and for us to listen and consider what's being said, but not for two-way communication. So Mr. Admission, go ahead.
Hi guys, Mike Admission, 35535 Richland Street, Livonia 48150. So I've had a lot of things come across my mind as this meeting has progressed. Several things I thought I wanted to discuss or issues to raise or points to make. But really at the end of the day, I think the anxiety that is evident in the staff, the parents and the students is really the paramount issue to look at. Educators have been time and time again placed on a pedestal as selfless martyrs who are willing to sacrifice personal and professional gain to serve their students. That's really an undeniable fact. Educators are some of the most selfless people I've ever come across. A lot of the anxiety coming across tonight, sometimes viscerally, is palpable, but I ask that you not take it personally, but instead realize that it's a voice coming from a marginalized group of individuals paid, unfortunately, little more than lip service from politicians and those in positions of power to truly reform public education at a systemic level. That being said, with this pandemic, teachers have once again been asked to do the unthinkable, rewrite your curriculum, your entire curriculum by yesterday to deliver in a manner that is admittedly a poor substitute at best to in-person learning, all while being a parent to your child, if you have one, who you're homeschooling, likely caretaking to being a caretaker to a spouse or another family member, all without losing your sanity. Now, because of mismanagement on a monumental country-spanning scale and a dogmatic adherence to ignorance by some across the country, educators are once again being asked to jumpstart society in conditions that are akin to what we saw at the beginning of this pandemic. This is not the fault of any of you stakeholders here in Oak Park. I want to make that clear. I'm not casting aspersions on any of you. It's simply an undeniable fact that this has been mismanaged at a federal level. But we have to admit that staff and stakeholders here in Oak Park are apprehensive for a litany of reasons, and I think a lot of that has come across. We're worried because there are unknowns around the cleanliness of buildings based, unfortunately, in repeated instances by janitorial staff in the past. I appreciate Ms. Goodfriend for lifting this and for Dr. Hitchcock for really setting a precedent for notification, letting staff know that they can inform their administrators so that hopefully we can start to make the cleanliness right. I've received a lot of, hey, I still have a peanut butter sandwich in my closet that was there before we went out, or hey, there's a cockroach in this fire thing, or hey, my floors haven't been mopped, or hey. So I'm glad that there's at least a system that would appear to be there for administrators to report the issues up the chain of command, and hopefully for DM Burr or whomever is handling the cleaning to start to get some of this under their belt before we come back, because I know it's only going to get worse if and when we decide to come back for normal day-to-day cleaning, in addition to the sanitation that's going to happen between classes, after the school day, before the school day, on Wednesdays, or whatever day is identified for a deep cleaning day. We're also worried because of the apparent oncoming second wave that's looking to be as bad as early months. We've put a great deal of work into trying to make the virtual environment as good as it can be and are constantly looking for ways to improve it. Is it perfect? No. Is it ideal for learning? No. But as I said previously, there isn't an educator in this district, or dare I say out there, that wouldn't rather be teaching in the classroom in front of our kids. If it can be done, if conditions abate, if it's possible to do it safely, I'm all for having the discussion to make sure the plan is as complete as possible with input from all stakeholders at every point up to implementation, and continued input as the plan and conditions evolve. However, if the conditions continue at the current clip or worsen, as I previously did, give a full-throated voice of support for a continued virtual model with course corrections. There is, unfortunately, a fight going on that balances political expediency with possible exposure reality for all staff, all students, and all stakeholders. If you're an advocate for reopening, then especially if things are not improving or get worse, but you've never really been an advocate for fully funding them, I really ask you to apply. I know that Ms. Diglio would be more than happy to take your application, either as a full-time employee or as one of the sub companies would gladly accept your application to help make sure that we can ensure social distancing, so that we can ensure lower class sizes, so that we can make sure we can reopen safely. I urge you all, especially those of you who are pushing for reopening, to vote in 15 days for public education, for candidates you believe wholeheartedly support public education, and for any and all further funding models that would buoy up public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adamishin. Mr. Hartzig.
Hi, Brian Hartzig, 11515 Maple Creek Court, Washington, Michigan, 48094. I'm not going to be as eloquent as Michael, But I do have a list of things that I've come up with, not only with my newfound building rep position, but also just feelings and thoughts that I came across. I'm a little, and I know nobody's going to respond, but I'm a little concerned that parents are responding at only 800 families to start. I believe we still have close to 4,100 families, and I know there's multiple students. So I'm a little disturbed that we're judging decisions or putting plans in place based on 1/4 of our families responding. And yes, 80% of students want to come back or go back to school. So does my son. I kept him home because he can't make that decision because he's a minor. Again, I did see this come across the chat. Hey, 80% of kids want to eat pizza every night. But that doesn't mean we're buying them pizza every night. We definitely want to take into account all their social needs, all their needs as far as getting out with adults and talking to adults and sharing those things. But at the same time, they are children, they are minors. There are reasons in this world that minors do not make our decisions. We are grown adults. We make the decisions and we make them based on what is best for our children. Second thing that I had was I do think it's a little disturbing, a little presumptive to have these plans in place when we are looking at, I believe we're averaging 1,500 for the last 10 days. When we went out, I think it was March 12th, March 13th, we had 16 total cases in Michigan. Yes, it was catching fire. It was all over the place. But we are still trying to be safe. And with, again, I think some of the federal positions, striking down governor laws and then health departments putting those back up, we have to take into account not only our children, because some of our children have the same health concerns that we do as adults, or they run in our blood, unfortunately. So we don't even understand how they affect our children for the long haul. So we have to start thinking about how can we make these decisions responsibly for our children. Those of us that are working at home, and I agree. If we're going back, I hope everyone goes back in this room tonight. My classroom will be open to all of you. And I would hope that you would come through the buildings and do the same things that we are doing as teachers. And what it means for me also is I have to send my student back to class. I don't agree with the whole thing that our kids are going hungry and things like that. I think Oak Park has a huge support system for our families. And if we lean on people not eating and people not having what they need in Oak Park, then we are failing as Oak Park. And I've been there 22 years and I know we're not failing in Oak Park, or I would not be in Oak Park still today. The next thing that I did hear someone say that students are not learning well
Mr.
in our
Hartson,
district.
wrap up.
I'm sorry, what?
Please wrap up.
Okay, so I heard that somebody did say that we're not learning well in our district, and I would have to disagree with that. My parents are very happy. I have 31 students. They are fantastic. The kids are doing well. The parents are happy. We are putting in as teachers probably 3 times more than we do when we were in the building, because this is no easy job at home, but we want to protect people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartzig. Mr. Conan.
Hello, my name is Pete Conan. I live at 13331 Rosemary Boulevard in Oak Park, Michigan. I'm a teacher at the high school. I teach science. And I actually teach my classroom every single day. I'm one of the few teachers that actually goes into the school because of the luxury of living close. And I love teaching in my classroom. I also help with the football team. So I get to actually see my students on a daily basis almost. And it's an absolute luxury. And they've talked to me about how much they want to be back in the classroom. And so I get to talk to them every day about how safety is the primary concern of our district. We care about how the well-being is our primary concern. And I feel like I have a bit of a exclusory position because I teach my classroom every day. And I've gone several days. There's one time I went 4 days in my classroom with nobody cleaning it. And I've expressed that concern, and it's been remedied, so to speak, for the most part. They come in every day and let them clean it. But then ultimately it comes down to them wiping my desk down with some solvent that I don't even know what the chemical constituency is. My degree is in micromolecular biology. And so I feel like my understanding of the current pandemic is exclusively science-based. And if we have to go back in person, I'm going to do it because I love my kids. My kids are my first priority. They're my family. And so I'm going to do that. But if I have to teach in person, I'm not going to let myself see any of my friends or my family, because I do understand like there's an increased risk to them. And like there are people I care deeply about who are immunocompromised. And so I won't get to see them. And that's going to do irreparable harm to my mental health. And I know for sure that I'm not the only teacher who's in that position. And we'll do what has to happen for our kids, but it's going to hurt us a lot, and it might not be recoverable. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Conan. Shalia?
Hi, I'm Shalaya Joyner, 107.
Sorry, Shalia.
No problem. 10741 Corny Street, Oak Park, Michigan. I have been a resident here forever, 25 years. I have a 9th grader at the high school, and I am a concerned parent about the talk of going back into school. But I can understand why, because I see it from a parent view. I can understand that virtual learning is hard for the students. And it's partially because the way it's designed. It's designed almost as failure for them. My son gets online at 8:30. He's done with virtual learning at 1:30. He does about maybe 30 minutes for 6 classes. At 1:30, he's exhausted. He's been online all day. So after that, it's like you have to finish your work. He's like, Mom, I'm exhausted. I'm at home as well, working from home some days, and some days I have meetings which are 5 hours a day. And I can understand if you're sitting in front of a computer for 7 hours, 6 hours, your brain is fried. I have 2 children in school. I have one in Ferndale District. I have him in Oak Park. My daughter in Ferndale, the design of their virtual learning is successful. And I said that because the high school students in Ferndale, they're doing 3 classes one day, 3 classes the next day, and it's a little different pace. So it's allowing them to have learning, if you understand what I'm saying. They go on, they do their classes, and then they have time to do their work outside of the virtual learning, which is helping them in that way. I'm also a social worker, so I understand what Dr. Hitchcock stated. However, I don't see, and I work for the state, and the state is closed. We're not in the office. I don't see learning resuming. It should even be thought about resuming until spring 2021. Now, what we should think about is redesigning the virtual learning where it's not setting the children up for failure. It's not setting them up to where they're exhausted after virtual learning. So afterwards, they can work independently. And that's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilford.
Hello, Latoya Wolford, 20123 Manor, Detroit, Michigan, 48221. I am a parent of 3 children actually in the Oak Park schools. I have 2 kids at Pepper and I have 1 at the high school. I'm not going to necessarily say I feel like the virtual learning was set up for failure, just because of the simple fact that I did pull my kids out earlier before they closed down the schools. And I am glad because of that, because my oldest is a severe asthmatic. And in Pepper, one of the children caught or was exposed to COVID. And I felt like it was a late response to it getting out. So necessarily my question being is, how do we control when the kids, leave the school? How can we control when they walk out that door? When those children walk outside that door, we can't control who they're around, who they were with. When they just recently had the PSATs, the testing, not one of those kids was social distancing. Not one person was out there to make sure that those children were social distancing. Those kids had no mask on. They were everywhere in the building. And the only thing that really secured me, even though I was worried about sending my child, was that when he came home, he said, "Mom, it was only 2 people in my class." And I feel that was because of him having a special, he has ADHD, so he had to be in a situation to where he had to be isolated. But I just feel like a lot of these children, like I said, Oak Park is great, a great school. I'm just fed up with the technology because right now I'm able to be at home mom. But the technology and my kids being penalized because they can't get on their laptop, or they're having to miss classes because their laptops, I done traded them out 3-4 times. So Oak Park, I feel like you guys are doing a great job. I feel like Oak Park Schools is amazing. I've been at Oak Park Schools for years. I know a lot of teachers. I know a lot of the, higher up people, but I do feel like it's I'm really concerned about the kids, just really the safety of the kids. And that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Fuller?
Hi, everybody. I am Desiree Fuller, 27500 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan, 48034. One of the things, and I did post it in the chat as well, is that I personally think that another survey should go out for the kids with them understanding what the conditions in the school would be like. And that's something that hasn't been discussed. How many will be in the class? What will be the protocol? The fact that they think that coming back to school means that they can interact with each other and that this is over. And I'm like, guys, that's not what's going to happen. They don't know what it's going to look like. They think we're going to come in and somehow we're going to make the school a magical place and COVID is not a threat. That is not the case. They took that survey. They did not know that they will be sitting in a classroom facing forward, can't interact with nobody, can't talk to nobody. You can't even see anybody smile at you. You can't eat with anybody. They don't know that. So we talk about children's mental health at home, but I know I would feel a certain kind of way as a student if I couldn't interact with anyone because it would be unsafe. That's another thing that has a mental effect on students as well. So that wasn't brought up. It definitely wasn't in the survey, and they need to know that because they spoke about it in class. I'm like, baby, that's not what's going to happen. I have a niece that is in another district. She told me straight up, Auntie, I'd rather do virtual learning because it feels like juvenile detention when I come to school every day. I feel like I've done something wrong. I can't interact. I can't kick it with my friends or any of that. Right now, when they took that survey, they thought something completely different. And I promise you that 80% gonna look completely different if they knew the real. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Are there any other members of the community that would like to address the board at this time? Please type it in the chat. Okay, so we move on to our action items. And our first action item, 7A. Let's see, Mr. Smith, can you please read that one? You're muted, Mr. Smith.
Excuse me. Yeah, was it action item number 7A, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education approved the interlocal governmental agreement with Oakland County to allow for the distribution of CARES Act funds.
Is there a second? Supported by Trustee Klein. Are there any questions from board members about the motion? Okay, Ms. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Smith,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Goodfriend, Hoda,
Yes.
and Cochran.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We move on to 7B. Trustee Klein, can you read that one, please?
Resolved, the Oak Park Board of Education approve the resolution for the Oakland Together School COVID-19 Support Fund. Whereas Oakland County leaders have established the Oakland Together School COVID-19 Support Fund that provides $28 million of CARES Act to support public school districts with the implementation of safety protocols stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. And now therefore it be resolved, the Oakland Together School COVID-19 Support Fund and the Oakland Together School Nurse Program will allow Oak Park schools to navigate challenging financial circumstances amidst a global pandemic.
Is there a second? I will second it. So moved by Trustee Klein. I think Ms. Goodfriend seconded it. Is that right? Seconded by Trustee Goodfriend. Do any board members have questions on the motion? Okay, Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Klein,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Cochran.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We move to action item 7C. Trustee Goodfriend, can you read that one, please?
I don't have it in front of me. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Corcoran, do you have that?
Only I do, but my voice, everything's always messing up with me. I'm so sorry.
All right,
I'm being robbed tonight.
I got it, Mr. Hoyter.
Okay, I'll read it.
Thanks, Mr.
Resolved that
Smith.
the Oak Park Board of Education enter into closed session following the addendum before adjournment for the purpose of Section 8C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act.
Support.
Moved by myself, supported by Trustee Smith. Are there any questions from the board about the motion? Okay, Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cochran,
Yeah.
and Klein.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. We move on to information items. Information item 8A is regarding the MASB Delegate Assembly. This is just a reminder to the board that the MASB conference is going to be held on Thursday, November 5th through Saturday, November 7th. It will be virtual and it is no cost to the district. So any board members that would like to attend are welcome to do so. There will be a delegate assembly the first night, but there won't be any items being voted on. It's going to be an update from the MASB leadership about it's going to be an update from MASB leadership about the status of the organization and so forth moving forward. So again, I strongly encourage board members to set aside the time to attend as much of the conference as you can, especially since we don't have to travel this year to attend. It's more convenient and it's a great opportunity to build our skills and develop and learn information together with school board members from all across the state. So do any board members have any questions on the information item? And then if anyone wants to register, you can contact Pat and she can take care of that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And that brings us to our closed session. So the board is going to adjourn now into closed session. I'm going to recommend we take about a 5-minute break so people can take care of whatever they need to and then reconvene in the separate link that you have in your Outlook calendar for the closed session. And then after that closed meeting is completed, we will return here to this Zoom link to complete the meeting. All right. Good night, everyone.
Right.